Good morning, Norm.
Hi, Clarissa. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited that you took my call and to be on the episode this morning. You and I got to know each other a little bit in the startup movement across the province, and you've been an entrepreneur for quite some time. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey of entrepreneurship that you've been through?
Yeah, sure. It's been 30-ish years.
Yeah.
So I started in '88, back when computers were made of wood, and I was working as a software developer for the Atlantic Lottery Corporation, working on the 649 game.
Okay.
And then I decided I didn't want to work for anybody, and so I moved to Fredericton because that's where the place to be was back in the '80s. That's where government was. That's where the universities were, and that's where the potential opportunities were. So
Right.
moved here with a old neighborhood kid that I grew up with, and we started a business. And now I've on number 9.
Right.
So we built a software company, and then we decided that we were going to be a services business, and we wanted to build product. So nobody in the '80s and early '90s would give you 10 cents. There was no such thing as entrepreneur centers or funding for startups. They weren't even called startups. It was just a business. You went and
Right.
registered a business, and you went into the abyss and did your thing.
Hmm.
And banks wouldn't touch you. Most people thought you were stupid because why would you turn down a good job to go do something on your own? So we just flew on our own, and we basically. I always joke when I talk to startups that I said we had VC funding back in the late '80s, and it was called Visa card. And what you did back then, because we didn't have systems that where banks could talk to each other easily, you went and applied for a Visa card, and then you went and applied for another Visa card and another Visa card and another Visa card. And then you had a lot of credit to work with. You were 45 days from death at any time, and there was a 20-ish% bogey on everything that you borrowed. So you were
Right.
motivated to get something done real quick
Right.
because you didn't have a whole lot of time before people come after you, right? So yeah,
So
that's
sorry, when you say that when you had that realization that you didn't want to work for anyone else, you know, like a lot of people sometimes have that internal feeling of, I just wish I could work for myself, but they're a little bit more timid or scared to kind of like jump into that deep water. What made you make that jump to say, no, I'm going to do it all on my own?
stubborn pursuit of what I wanted. It wasn't a fear. There was no fear. It was like, you know what? Yeah, I can't see myself working for anybody and listening to what somebody else tells me to do. There's a way that we need to go. If they want me to go there, I can only go there so long, and eventually
Right.
I have to go here.
Yeah.
So between my business partner and I, we were both pig-headed 20-year-olds, and it was like, yeah, let's just go do this. Worst
Right.
case scenario, it'll
Right.
all fly apart, and you'll just go get a job somewhere. We know how to do that. So
So
yeah.
so obviously it wasn't all, rainbows and gumdrops in that, probably in that first little bit when you had a wallet full of Visa cards and you were, kind of out there knocking on doors. What were those early on learned lessons from you and with that first business?
The early on stuff was nobody wanted to give you a project. Nobody wanted to give you a chance. You just basically had to beat doors down. And there was a thing we talk about it even nowadays in Atlantic provinces or in New Brunswick even where we were always the have-not province. And and for businesses, if you were a software consulting firm or a software development company in town, you couldn't really be that good because why are you here? You
Mhm.
should be from California or Toronto or somewhere else. And that's where the really good talent is. So why would we hire you? And we made the early decision onward. We're sitting around at my place one day, and we looked at each other and said, you know what? We're constantly getting the same thing being told to us. You have no experience, you have no reference, and we can't get experience in a reference because
Mhm.
it's just catch-22. So we said, everybody says that all these people from away are the smart ones. So we said, well, let's be from away.
Mhm.
So we in the middle of the night, we called we said, where would we like to go to be from away? So we always thought, hey, Australia was a cool thing to do.
Mhm.
So we got on the back then when you could push the operator the O button on a phone and got operator. We got the operator. We said, we'd like the main newspaper in Sydney, Australia, please. And eventually they patched us through to the Sydney Herald. And we asked if we could get a newspaper delivered to us. And we wanted to know which days had the job sections in it.
Mhm.
So anyways, we get a newspaper would show up 2 weeks old from Sydney, Australia in a cardboard tube. And we'd go through all the contracting positions and so on. And basically, long story short, we ended up in Sydney, Australia, contracting with Price Waterhouse, building the treasury system for the New South Wales government. We
Wow.
started from the bottom. We ended up leaving there as project managers because we said, we're here for a short time
Mhm.
and we need to pad a resume as much as we can. So if we go back to Canada, we can say, look what we've got. So that's what we did. Spent a year.
Wow.
It was a wonderful time. And we came back with a whole new perspective on, a perspective on how big our town was and our province was and the world was
Yeah.
and how business is done in our large
Wow.
urban centers. And that really framed our perspective on how to move forward. And we had a whole different way of looking at business and making deals. And then we started to be able to pick off contracts because we go say, look, this is what we just did. We just finished
Right.
it. It was an impressive piece of work, and that allowed us to leverage off that and build
Right.
our practice.
And because I've known you for, for a few years now, I've known you, and tell me if this is, is this a, kind of a safe thing to say, but you're the guy with the eye on the prize, right? And that story, even though I didn't know that story before, it doesn't surprise me because in committee work that I've done with you or project work that I've done with you, your eye always stayed on that end result, right? And
Right.
then you mapped out how to get there. But how difficult was it to not just say, oh well, I'm just gonna let it go, or how difficult was it to take those steps to be able to come home to New Brunswick and build what you have built now?
Hmm. I don't know if I'd use the word difficult. It was wired in like that. I used to use the term stubborn. My wife tells me, don't use stubborn. That's a negative term. Use persistent.
Persistent, yeah.
It's a more positive term. And I was persistent. I said, there's got to be a way
Hmm.
to get over there. And it was always about, I was always a problem solver, tinkerer, learned that
Right.
from my dad. He was an engineer. So there's something wrong with that. Let's figure that out.
Hmm.
There's always an answer to something. So you might not know what it is. So just pursue it. And it
Right.
was never really a fear. It was just there was a drive. You got to go figure it out. And no, it won't be fun. Sometimes it'll be dark and you'll be running with scissors in the fog and
Right.
whatever.
Right.
You got to choose to or choose not to. And I'd
Yeah.
make that choice earlier on and say, yeah, I'm choose to. Okay, go. Now there's no more discussion about if you're going to or not. You just are now running with your
Right.
scissors.
Yeah. So fast forward to in between then. So we move on from that, and you say you're on business 9. So between business 1 and business 9, what has happened in between there?
Well, we built a kind of custom software development company back then. We'd find a business and say, what are your problems? And they'd say, well, these are our problems. Oh, we could solve those with technology. And we'd go in and build cool software, and we'd build a reference. We'd go on to the next customer.
Right.
And after a while, we said, this is interesting. We're trading time for money. We go do work, we get money. We go do more work, get more money. So what if we built software products? We could sell them over and over and over again and make money. And then internet was becoming popular. We thought, that's an interesting thing. You should be able to use that to make money too. So we'd start to say, let's spin off product company. And so we'd start a product company. We can solve that problem in business by doing this. So we'd build that with the money that we were making from our services company. Then we'd spin it off and then we'd go do a thing and see if we could sell it. And then we'd start another one and start another one. So that's kind of where we went. We always had our mainstream services company going down the middle. So we started with a small one, changed its name to Invention Technologies. And then we end up at some point in time, we said, in Atlantic Canada, we were at this kind of 40, 45 employee size. We said, at the time, there was a company called X-Wave in Atlantic Canada. They were a big consulting firm. They were getting all the cool big contracts with government. We were always being pounced out of the door. So we said, how do we go and eat their lunch? So we said, we need to be as big as they are. Well, how will we do that? We said, well, we can't just grow. Why don't we do acquisitions? Why don't we see who else we can acquire and become the big company and go compete with those guys head to head. So we ended up finding two other software companies that were agreed to merge under us, and we created what's now called Ecrion.
Right.
And it became a service. It's a healthcare service company based in Fredericton, but we were now the size of them, and they happened to be going down at the same time. So it was good. So it positioned us as a regional player.
Okay.
Office in Charlottetown, and we created a Boston office, so we had a U.S. healthcare presence, and we just kept growing that thing. And each time, we've had other software products initiatives that we would launch off the side to go solve a specific problem. And for the most part, they were in healthcare. We had some healthcare products that were sold. We sold a product for doing hospital stuff to a company called Omnicare down in Kentucky,
Okay.
and they were $multi-billion pharmacy corporation that we came from.
Mhm.
And we built one and blew it up. It's one of those. Not every venture works, so we had built a software company to do advanced learning and immersive learning, 3D stuff. It was for defense and so on. And a number of things went wrong. There were some bad actors that got involved and led the thing astray. So we ended up shutting it down. But so some of them did well.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So we just kept going, and then I exited my eighth a couple of years ago and sat down to figure out what number 9 would be, and ended up finding some technology that was interesting, and 3D Planeta was born of that.
Right. So tell us, and our committee work ended as you were kind of giving birth to 3D Planeta. So, and I've been following you along through social media, but tell us a little bit about how, you married that problem with this, with the technology to create 3D Planeta.
Yeah, so it was an interesting encounter. I'm sitting home at my home office, and I was effectively building a substitute for Uber to deal with
Okay.
moving goods and services on any kind of transportation for any kind of nonprofit or profitable need.
Okay.
And basically it was optimizing transportation networks that run around all the time.
Right.
And so then I had a colleague of mine came. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm doing this." He said, "I get some interesting technology. I'll take a look." So there was things happening up at the geomatics and geodesy department at the University of New Brunswick. So they were a world-leading geomatics firm department for years, and they had come up with some pretty world-class things in the past. They had a bunch of patent tech, and this latest thing was about how to take satellite imagery and create a beautiful 3D, true 3D from it, so that you could view it in a 3D hardware and look at, let's say, looking at Google Earth on a screen. It's like you're looking out the window. It's the
Okay.
depth perception and everything. And we thought, so I looked at it, and at the same time, the same colleague had brought in one of the heads of the Canadian Armed Forces, CFB Gagetown here in New Brunswick. He was the head of our learning support center for the Army. So they built all of the advanced training, modeling, and simulation capability for the Canadian soldier.
Okay.
So they were all about AR, VR, and
Mhm.
simulations and 3D and all the cool stuff. So he came in to look at it, and we both met each other at the same time. Currently, he's my COO, just on the other side of this wall. And so we looked at it and we said, "That's interesting technology." And they wanted us to go and kind of put a company together and go sell this to Google, because that would be the
Okay.
next Google Earth. And they said, that's the ticket. We said, no, it's not. We'll go
Mhm.
to California, and they'll look at us and go, "Yeah, we'll give you a couple of bucks for that." And then they'll go figure out how to build it on their own or whatever. So we said, but if you took that and you created a bunch of capability to operate in the 3D, you could create this marvelous situational awareness and operational intelligence, because you could now see the ground and evaluate where I can put people in dangerous situations, whether it's emergency response or disasters or military conflict or urban conflict. And you could also use it to explore, like
Okay.
solar energy companies and so on, when you're trying to explore where to go. It
Mhm.
provided this whole new fidelity. So we thought, you do all this stuff, then this thing becomes an engine in the car over here. The engine's not worth a whole lot by itself. The car's worth it.
The car is right.
So we said, so that's how 3D Planeta came to be. So
Okay.
we took that technology, we built this platform, we put that engine in it, and said, now this is our differentiator. And then we went and traveled the world to
Mhm.
see who had the same thing. Who else has got this? So my COO, Tom, he had 40 years in the Canadian Armed Forces, well respected here and in the UK and the US. So we were able to use some connections to get contacted with folks. Because we said, if anything really cool like this 3D image fusion that we have, if anything like this exists in the world, it's going to show up in the defense sector because that's where all the cool stuff is.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we said, well, let's go to all the biggest shows in the world and we'll bring our demonstration platform and we'll try to put it in front of people. Say, what do you think? And
Mhm.
people will tell us. You either are an also ran, you're pretty cool, really cool, or we've never seen anything like that. We
Mhm.
wanted to see where we fit. That would determine whether or not we had something to run with and how fast we should go, or should we just pack our bags and go do something else.
Right.
So we came back with an overwhelming, you're out front, this is pretty cool, this is breakthrough, la 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 la. So we said, all right, mission, let's go. And then we've been basically spending 80 hours a week building the firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a I never tire of hearing how, you take that one grain of, sand and then just kind of blow it up into and that drive. And I think that's what I admire most about you, Norm, is that constant drive, to to keep going and keep going and keep going, even though, there's times that sometimes you hit walls, right? And sometimes, that when things don't go your way, you just pivot and say, well, where, like, just find me another door, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I admire most. What would you say would be your biggest lesson to date as an entrepreneur?
Hmm. Lessons I've learned, for example,
Mhm.
one would be never rely completely on your instincts.
Okay.
Force yourself to step outside of your own zone and go validate what you believe.
Right.
Like, not, people say, well, this is the best thing. Why? Well, because I think it's the best thing. Well, why? Well, because it's obviously the best thing. Well, how many other people have told you that? I don't know. How many people have you asked? So it's like, go find out and get the hard answers back. Maybe you find out what you think is the best color in the world isn't the best color in the world.
Right. Right.
And so I was constantly forcing myself to do that, where what I might think was an obvious solution or an obvious advantage on something might not necessarily be that from a potential customer's perspective. So I kept fine tuning that over the last bunch of years. And now I pretty much start with that. It's like, okay, it's nice that I have an opinion. Everybody's got one. But what does the customer think? And will they actually buy your stuff? Will they just go, yeah, that's nice, but so there's that fine line where you kind of get to that point. You think, I pretty much got it figured out. Yeah, no, you really don't. Keep going. Keep challenging your perspective and your belief. Be confident in what you believe, but make sure it's validated by others, especially those who might actually buy your thing from you.
Right.
And so that was always something to keep learning, because you can get excited about something
Yeah.
cool that you like,
Right.
and then your objectivity starts to wane because you're convinced it's the greatest
And would
thing.
you would you say that also lends to the importance of, building a community around you of people who you can constantly ask, for their advice or for, their honesty when it comes
Yeah.
to, what you're doing?
Yes, that's huge. That's huge. One says, we often talk about it as entrepreneurs. Well, you carve your own path and you're on your own. Blah, blah. Yeah, I don't think so.
Mhm.
Nobody really does stuff on their own. If you look back at it and say, did you really get where you are all by yourself with nobody else's help or advice? Did anybody ever cuff you in the back of the head, say that's a stupid idea, which caused you to actually pivot and do something smarter? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the more smart people you surround yourself with that you can rely on and trust,
Mhm.
that's the key thing, trust, the better. Surrounding yourself with people who think you're cool and tell you yes all the time, they're not your yeah, that's not a good group to have around you. Like your friends. Your friends
Yeah.
should never be your mentors.
Or your family.
Friend, or your family. Yeah, your family's there. My mom thinks everything I do is just wonderful.
Yeah.
She loves every post I write. This is fabulous. Just from her kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask her, what do you think I should do? Should we break into the UK market or should we go with Argentina first? No.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Right.
or it's so yeah, you really have to have people who are going to give you they're willing to give you the honest answers, even if you don't like it. And you got to have the ability, the depth to accept that maybe I'm not quite right.
Right.
Maybe I'm not wrong. Maybe I'm partially right. Maybe I need to change my perspective. And you
Right.
constantly start to reflect inwards and use that ammunition as
Hmm.
ammunition to carve out a smarter path and be better at what you do. A lot
Yeah.
of people I talk to, a lot of startups now, they're very myopic. They just think they got the solution. They're going to build it first, and then the world's just going to come rolling in the door.
Yeah.
They
And I
go.
think that's such a significant piece of advice. Do you think that is like if somebody were to come to you today and say, give me your top piece of advice, is that the advice that you would give them, or would it be something else?
No, that'd probably be it. Is put yourself in a position where you can continue to be objective.
Hmm.
It's very easy to get sold on your own perspective of something. I catch myself doing it a lot, and he's like, ooh, sick.
Hmm.
Maybe I should find out the real truth. Which is
Right.
why when we started 3D Planet, we didn't go build a platform and try to sell it. We went to the world with a demonstrable platform. You
Hmm.
know, it was kind of what we call it the smoking beta. It's like it works. You can't have it, but I can run it for you. But it demonstrates what you might want, and then I wait to see what you say about it.
Right.
Because what you say about it is the truth. Because you're either going to sign a check or you're not going to sign a check to
Hmm.
buy it.
Yeah.
So, and what do you say? And I shouldn't color your opinion with my own. I should take your opinion. So anyway, it was learning that to constantly validate yourself objectively, not subjectively. And that opens up all kinds of opportunities after that. Because then you're navigating slightly different. You're not always just blindly going forward.
Right.
Um,
So
intelligent.
what do you think is, because I'm sure people ask you for advice all the time,
Yeah.
but in your lifetime, even since you were little, what was the best piece of advice that you ever received from someone?
Hmm. Really, it was just being respectful.
Hmm.
Um, life, don't burn bridges. The basic stuff. I had a good neighbor of ours when I was a kid growing up, and he was a pretty stern guy, and I would mow his lawn and stuff. Him and my dad were good friends, and they talk across the hedge a lot.
Hmm.
And he'd say, or make sure when you grow up, you be respectful of others. Don't burn your bridges, because small towns, things will come back to haunt you. Okay, okay, Mr. J. And, but you realize as you get older, you know what? Yeah, stuff's not going to go right,
Yeah.
and whatever. But the people around you, find the people that you deal with properly, be respectful. The people that aren't respectful, you don't want to hang around with. Just don't hang around with it. Don't burn the bridge, because you
Right.
never know when you're going to run into them again.
Yeah.
You might end up working for them someday. Who knows?
Right.
But
Right.
yeah.
So what's next for you, Norman? What I mean, I know you have 3D Planet. I know you're kind of working on something that kind of helps with, the whole COVID and when the pandemic hit, you kind of put on your thinking cap and said, how can I make this issue be, look more like an opportunity? But so what's next for you, for Norm?
Whoa, I'm knee deep in this one. Next, I can't put a next in the schedule right now.
Yeah.
But no, next will be whatever happens with 3D Planet. Right now, my predominant focus, the edge of my radar is make 3D Planet a 5-star company.
Okay.
It just line up all the things that we have to do to make this thing a very solid working organization. Yes, somebody's going to come along and acquire it someday, and hopefully for a good sum of money. But
Hmm.
the goal is not that. The goal is to build the company that it creates the opportunity for that.
Right.
The 2 meter thing, as you mentioned, the COVID response. I mean, that was on the side. We said, look, we got to do something. Even though we're busier than one-arm paper hangers, we have to do something. And we can't build masks for ventilators, but we can
Hmm.
build tech. So why don't we go see if we can help people stay out of the lines at
Hmm.
retail? So we did that, and the product's live. It's a cloud-based mobile app. We laugh about it because we said 3D Planeta, what we're building here, it's like building a Formula One race car.
Right.
Lots of engineering, lots of science, lots of smart AI and machine learning. It's a big thing, and
Hmm.
it costs a lot to build, and yet it's very valuable in industry. It will save lives, it will save money, it will do all kinds of wonderful things, but it's big and heavy. And
Yeah.
then we turn around, we build this 2 meter thing, like mobile app on the cloud, subscription based, kind of like in our back pocket. And
Right.
I use the skip the dishes analogy. I talk to investors about that. I said, skip the dishes, we could do that overnight. That's 5% product, 95% marketing.
Mhm.
So that's what we did with 2 meter, and it's out there, it's working, it's people are using it. It's slow uptake here in New Brunswick because nobody thinks we have a problem around here.
Right.
There's not much for lineups. People are like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Retailers are, we're going to bury our head the same. Just
Yeah.
go back simulator. So we have some Ontario customers, but that's what it was. Easy
Yeah.
product, get it out the door, market, sell, sell,
And
sell.
it was almost like a piece of almost corporate responsibility to say, well, we're over here building this machine of 3D Planeta. We recognize that there's, a bit of a social crisis going on, and we can use our smarts to do this. So,
Yep.
we're going to do this as an add-on or as a help.
Yep.
Just because that's what we can do right now. Like you say, you couldn't
Yep.
build masks, couldn't go in and work in hospitals, but that was something that you could do to help with
Yeah.
the crisis.
Yeah, and it was never about money. We never said, how much money can we make from this? We're like, that doesn't matter. I want to keep my mom out of the grocery store line when it's
Right.
snowing
Yeah.
and we have wave number 3. Or,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
that's all it was about. I said, that's enough reason to proceed. And the team that I've got here at 3D Planeta, they're phenomenal. I mean,
Mhm.
we have an awesome bunch of people. And we said, hey, what do you guys think about doing this 2 meter thing? We talked about it. Like, everyone's, yeah, that's
Yeah.
obvious. It's the right thing to do. And that was the motivation behind it.
Mhm.
Was the right thing to do, and off we went and did it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Norm, this has been amazing. I learned so much from you every time we talk. I wish you all the best with 3D Planeta. I'll be watching, and I just wish you much success with it and with whatever's next for you.
Yeah. What's next is getting my extra work done today, so I can take a day off this weekend, maybe if I'm lucky.
Right. Yeah.
It's always a pleasure. It's good to get connected again.
Yeah.
I miss you. I miss us being able to connect more often
I
and
know.
hanging out. But
Yeah.
hey, we've got Zoom. 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had
We do
something like
get
this,
Zoom.
right?
Right.
At
So
least
you
we
have
got
a
something.
great day.
I will.
Enjoy your holidays if I'm not talking to you before then, and keep playing those live shows because we all need music.
You got it. You got it. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Okay.
Clarissa.
Bye.
Take care.